The second semi-final for the French selection has just ended about a couple seconds ago, so now I've just immediately jumped onto my microphone and I'm just going to start talking for about 10 to 15 minutes about it. I want to start off by saying I think this is a better semi-final overall. I think, though, I'll have more songs to grab in the first semi-final. Overall, the second semi-final was better, but the select few in the first I really want to concentrate on, so that's my opinion. So you can stop watching now if you really cared about that. Okay, let's start off by saying nothing was more polarizing than having last year's winner on in the second semi-final opening performance, which I feel like is a little bit, it's just not right because, she won last year's Eurovision. You'd think you should put her on as the opening act for the final at least, but anyway, that's just my thought. No matter who it is or who wins the final from the previous year, they're going to part opinions like the Red Sea. And I imagine that's what most people's opinions were about this performance tonight. I thought it was alright. I thought it was good. Anyway, let's get straight onto the singing, straight onto the acts. Gabriella is another violinist. We had a violinist last semi-final with Lautner. She's got kind of like an Ellie Goulding tonality with her voice, which works well with the delicate instrumentation that her cover song had. It felt more natural with her with all the violin use compared to Lautner. She's much more comfortable with the instrument in her hand and how she acts with it. So with the actual song, well, the box is back, but it's a little bit different. This semi-final, it's got a nice LED panel and gauze on the front, I imagine, for a thing that happens later. I like the vibrant, complementary, contemporary colours. It's popping visuals. I don't think it's very traditionally French, but it's more modern French, and I like that. It's got strong bass in the chorus, and it's quite the contrast to the cover when you think about the genre and how it's made, the song. But I almost miss how she sounded in the cover because she really did sound very unique and captivating then, but that's just a side thought. I'm not really fully on board with the 3 hers in the box. I feel like you could do something else with that, maybe just some LED light shows. I'm not very sure why that's there as the visual. I don't think it's adding much to the performance. I feel like it's a good reveal for the 2 musicians underneath, except for the fact in some camera angles I saw them, which was a bit of a shame, but there's not really much you can do about that. You can tweak it at Eurovision or in the final if you want. Anyway, that's a bit of a looking under the veil and finding out that it's just 2 guys under a box, really. I don't think that's very good. I think they should look at their contract and consider if it's breaking human rights. Anyway, rambling. This effect happens like 2/3 of the way into the song, which will capture people's attentions, which is important. And she needs a stronger head voice, stronger falsetto for the last moments of the song, because you need to really capture them when it gets a little bit more quiet, a little bit more focused on the voice. Okay, straight on to the divas. I'm not a big fan of the name. I feel like adding a Z at the end of the name is a little bit too naughties for me, and now we're in the 2010s. It feels a little bit outdated, and I feel like it's a little bit too, with the kids, with the youth, and I don't think it works that well for me. It's a weirdly predictable cover song, having R.S.P.E.C.T. Obviously, I'd find out why later on in the show, because of the main song. And also, their dresses, they look like lobsters. I'm sorry if they're trying to hark back on good times and amazing trios. They look like lobsters. That's what I think, and that's what probably a good majority of the people will think at home. Graham Norton certainly will. Are you kidding me? That is what he's going to think immediately. Now, for the actual song, there's a nice bit of cinematic framing throughout the thing, which actually adds a nice layer to the overall performance that makes it a little bit more unique to the rest of them. It just goes down into a nice letterbox framing. The build for me sounds like, I think it's Raining Men? Yeah, I think it's Raining Men, which, makes sense considering their style and genre. The English in the chorus is a little bit on the nose for me. It's a little bit too not nudge nudge and wink wink. I think they could have done a little bit more with that. But again, it's just one line in English. All of the French might have been superbly written, and I wouldn't even be able to tell because I'm just a simple British boy. And the voices that you get are as good as you expect and as confident as you expect with this type of act. Strong harmonies, strong personality, and the chorus kind of felt up like a build-up in itself in a way. I don't think there was enough oomph to it throughout. Now, here's the reason. You're going to be mad at me for this, and I'm going to get at least one dislike, because I always do when I say anything too controversial. I'm so sorry. The reason why these weren't in my final 4 is because it just felt like there was nothing new, and there wasn't that much, dynamic change in between the moments. They had that strong, confident personality, and, throughout the entire song. And yeah, I know a trio female harmonizing group has been done at Eurovision before in 2016. I know that's the case. Obviously, they can have more, but I just feel like it's nothing new for me. I've seen it before. Gladstone, I think... Goldstone, sorry, last year for UK's national final tried it and didn't really work out. So I'm just saying it's nothing new for me. Okay, so Ugo, I'm feeling a lot of a Felix Sandman presence. I saw a couple of comments on Twitter saying that, and also Manuel Navarro. Fair enough. Just pick any young, fashionably looking boy, and then you'll be, close enough. He has a very nice male breathy voice, which I don't think happens a lot with this type of build, and he's got a nice contemporary bounce and swagger down on the stage, which, the song felt longer because that was happening all the time, but that was just me. And that was just the cover, so it doesn't really matter. Anyway, to the main song, smashing it on the staging again, guys. Smashing it with the lighting, the visual effects, everything. Not so much on the microphone technology. They've messed it up again. They seem to not get the right mix for everyone, for every single act. Both the last semi-final and this semi-final. It almost feels like it doesn't fit in with the music. It feels like it's a karaoke, and the reverb, the artificial reverb happening from the microphone is just a bit too loud, and it just sounds like separate for me. I like the theme, and I like the instrumentation, keeping it hot and an emotional pace to it, and the nice guitar and the nice whistles in the background. Very nice reverb in the mix as well. The chorus, again, needs more of an impact. You're going to see this as a constant trend throughout this video. The power of the voice comes through, it just needs to be matched with the music, but again, that's a technical problem. And the falsetto needs practice and confidence, another thing that's come up a couple of times in this semi-final. So, moving on to Tracy Dessat. Tacky background and kind of like a high school talent show performance with the Eminem song. Why isn't she given such a treatment like the rest with a nice contemporary backing track that sounds professional? Why did she have someone over on stage left with a piano just playing along? It didn't feel right for me. And then weird fire backgrounds. I don't think it was that fair. But the end was a nice change to classical music. So we get to the actual song, and oh boy, we actually get to the actual song. It had a nice, fierce and bright start and tight instrumentation, contrast to the cover. Really nice start, I'd say. But then you really get to the chorus, which is the biggest letdown possibly of the night. The low vocals were not strong enough and not stable enough, probably because she had to do so much dancing alongside it, but also because of the mixing and the microphone, which made it so prominent in the mix, and you could hear it every single time, and you just had to wince sometimes. It was really annoying. She was just noticeably off tune, which kind of ruins the whole song, which is why she ended up so low in the end. Spoilers, but I'm sure you've watched the show already, so. Paired with a not very inventive English lyrics in the chorus, which kind of just stands out like a sore thumb, it's just not great. And it's a real shame because I really, really like the instrumentation and the composition. It was kind of like Luca last year for the French national final. I love the song and I love the studio version. I just did not like it live because it just didn't fit and it didn't sink in well. One thing I definitely noticed is a very different semi-final this year. This song was noticeably and purposefully un-French, and I feel like there's a common theme throughout some of these songs. And it's just interesting to note. But then you go on to Emmanuel Moir. It's a risky to do Take On Me with a shaky falsetto beginning. Probably the nerves that caused that, but he got used to it as the song went on. And then he's got nice sounding vocals, but he wimped out on the high notes. You know that one. Oh, I better clip the microphone then. Anyway, I feel like you could have got the most wow factor by doing that high note that we all know and love. So the song, it's self-written, already a tick in my book because I love people that are self-written singer-songwriters, especially when it's something like this and not just a guitar song. The start is very captivating with a spinning box, which is, it's just a nice fact and nice camera work. Barefoot, I noticed. I realised why he was barefoot later on in the song, but at the moment I felt sorry for the stagehands who had to sweep the floor vigorously to make sure there wasn't anything sharp on it so he could injure himself and sue. Trust me, I've been there. The contemporary dances are a tick also in my book, since I'm from a contemporary theatre background and I like that stuff. Especially when Emmanuel engages with them. I wasn't expecting to be having him do some contemporary moves and being involved himself, which is a very nice surprise for me, I'd say. The instrumentation, I feel like is a little bit in the wrong decade. I think it's a little bit too much in the late noughties for me. It didn't really have that much of an impact on the overall song and the overall enjoyment of it, but I felt like there was a little bit there that just, was in the back of my mind. Again, I've got to mention the falsetto needs to be stable. There needs to be stable falsetto all around. It needs to be practiced throughout and throughout, because it's just that one weak point that everyone will concentrate on. And if your weak point is actually pretty good, then you got an overall pretty good package. The ripping off the clothes was an interesting part, because you ripped off the clothes to reveal a black shirt and more black clothes, which is not expected, but not necessarily a good an expectation, if that makes any sense. I'm English and I'm making up words. Don't worry about it. It's the first song that I felt had a genuine emotional connection to me, at least. Especially at the ending, when I was like, oh, that's actually kind of hitting me emotionally somewhere. And I thought, yeah, okay, cool. Anyway, next song is Noël. And anyway, here's Wonderwall. So, as a Brit, I've heard this song too many times, either in genuine format or in meme format, so, I'm surrounded by this song day and night. It's such a straight song when you hear the original version, but when you hear it, sung in a very contemporary female fashion, it's quite a different take. I'm not saying it's a good different take, I'm saying it's a different take. It definitely got me prepared for the song that I'd hear eventually. The song was quick to identify itself, and I liked the identity that it had. The confetti went off at a rather lackluster part of the thing, because you were listening to the song and you heard the chorus, and then you heard of the confetti spewing out into the audience was a little bit distracting. And it was at this point where I actually shouted out in my room about how angry I was that these choruses were just not landing properly, and they were just a little bit lackluster. It might have been the mixing. It might have all been the mixing, and they might all be brilliant. But at the moment, and in that moment, they were just all lackluster for the most part. And it got me genuinely angry for some reason, because I'm petty and I'm terrible, probably. One way that you can probably get around the lackluster chorus was having the backing singers louder. Definitely, because they were nailing those harmonies and you wanted to hear them, but you just couldn't. And then obviously having a little bit few more layers in the chorus, and then that's fine. That's great. It needs to stand out from the rest of the song. That's all. Okay, now we're getting to Simone. A low, breathy start, and she has very good camera connection, and you notice her singing style immediately when she starts singing, because it's so prominent. It's a very smoky, it's a very damaged vocal, but you'll see later on that that's not necessarily a bad thing. So when you get to the song, she is stable on those notes. She can sing those notes and she can hit them, and she can stay on them as well. For the instrumentation, I feel like you need to capture the Eurovision audience a little bit more. There's only a piano and a solo trumpet. When you think of Amar Pelos Deutsch, there is strings and all sorts on the background. Even just subtly, it'll add a difference, and it'll add those goosebumps, and it'll add that nice poignant style to it. I just zoned out for 30 seconds during the song. I was just listening to it. I wasn't making any notes. I just zoned out, which I feel like I'm going to interpret as good in the end, because in the end, I do like this song. I really do. So I'm going to consider that as a good thing for this moment. My mind was just concentrating on the music, and then letting my mind go with it, I'd say. It's very French. Definitely one of the most French in the semi-final, until the accordions happen later on, but we'll get to that. The damaged vocals, as I was saying, sound very good on this combination, kind of like Italy or Portugal last year. Both songs I really liked. So the overall package for this song is pretty damn good, I've got to say. Now we get to Du Star. It's a good act to come after Simone, because it injects life and energy into the cover alone, and the last part of the cover really wasn't needed, since it was just a lot of haze. But, I mean, they filled up time. What can you do? This show likes to fill up time, considering it lasted for 2.5 hours. Not bitter at all. Anyway, getting to the song, the vocals in the studio bit before the actual song plays was very auto-tuned, so I got a little bit worried. But I shouldn't have been, because the vocals were stronger than I expected, and I enjoyed the song more than I expected. It was very Papaute, the Stromae music video on stage, which I liked, even though there was some clear correlations between those two. And I love the vibe that the song has with the fitting vocals, and it's another one that at the end, I did see emotion, and I did feel emotion, which turns out is a very important part for me choosing my final 4 when I actually look through the list. So last but not least, we have Philippe Elise, where she has a very energetic presence, but not such an energetic voice, which, I'm not saying is a bad thing, it's just a very interesting thing that I've noted. Half of it was ba 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 ba, but I'll ignore that for the benefit of the doubt, considering I ignored the last one. So, You know, I've got to be fair. I've got to be impartial. Totally. So the final song, it was a very brave choice to start the song singing, because often you have to find the note and try and get it straight on, straight away. And she struggled a little bit, but she just flew off, doing good after that part. So we kind of just forgot about it and then moved on. The song and the staging is very French and very summery. You got the accordion and you got the beret, so you're ticking boxes in some stereotypical categories. She's bringing the same performance style to this as she did in the cover, and the confetti was a little bit more subtle this time, which has also suited the song. Overall, I feel like this was a very less French semi, I'd say. Even though this song was very French and, you know, very summery in the stage, the song didn't really capture me that much. So that's why it's not in my final four. But who is in my final four, you ask? Let me tell you, it is Gabriella, Emmanuel, Dustin, and Simone. Again, I struggled to find a fourth, but I had to think for a little bit before I actually thought, you know what, I'm going to add Simone because she adds a different dynamic to this entire show, let alone these four. So the reactions to the actual votes. Simone, despite coming second in the televote, she absolutely stole the jury. Full 12s, very good, congratulations. Kind of promising when you're thinking about putting something into Eurovision, if the international jury like it, but of course, televotes are very fickle about these things. And I did not expect Emmanuel to win the telephone, to be honest. I thought it was going to be a Simone sweep, judging by the reaction of the crowd to her name. But second is very good because she came first overall. I actually managed to predict what the televote would do. I predicted that Ugo would be going down and Gabrielle would be going up. And for some reason, I was really happy about that. And I was so worried up until I realized that it was mathematically impossible for him to not go through. I was so worried that Dustin wouldn't go through because I feel like that just really adds to the show. So, that's it. We have to wait till next week to find out who the winner for France and who will represent France at the Eurovision Song Contest. But if I could choose four, these are going to be my four. We have ASAT, we have Emmanuel, we have Simon, and we have Dustin. Now, Bilal is also probably on par with Dustin. I just couldn't choose between the two, but it's interesting how many have come through the second semi-final compared to the first. It's because quite a few of mine got knocked out last time, which is a shame, because I liked Mazzy's song. And you just watch the previous video if you haven't watched it already. Thank you very much for watching. I've got to edit this in like 30 minutes so I can get it up on the 19th of December, so I don't look... So, you know, I get that sweet exposure. I hope you like my voice for 20 minutes, or nearly 20 minutes, and I'll see you for the next video.